I'm Thomas Bremond. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for International at FreeWheel. And FreeWheel is a tech platform, side tech platform, which means we help publishers that have video inventory monetize their videos with their demand partners. We've been focused a lot on the transition of traditional broadcasters who are main historical clients to streaming. And so that in a nutshell is what FreeWheel does. It's a game that's completely changing right now, right? So you have new entrants that are global in nature because, of course, the rights are different from one country to the next, but the platforms are global, right? So you have a Netflix, you have an Amazon, and everybody is coming to a local market that was generally, 3 or 4 players, right? So you had a local player in Spain, you have 3 or 4 broadcasters, in Italy the same, in France the same, in the UK. So they're seeing these new entrants come in with radically innovative streaming proposition. And for them, they have to transform very rapidly, right? They're no longer just TV companies. They have to become competitors to these new entrants. And they also have to compete with the traditional sort of walled gardens like Meta, like YouTube. So the world is changing very fast for video publishers for 2 reasons. One, the nature of the campaigns, right? So they are more and more global campaigns. Because when you buy a YouTube campaign, because when you buy on Meta, they're global, right? You're buying from New York, you're buying for London for a number of territories. And again, that's new, right? For a local broadcaster, a local TV company, they knew the whole ecosystem locally. If you wanted to buy an ad on Channel 4 in the UK, you knew how to do that. That was pretty straightforward. You had your contacts, your agency knew each other. But somebody buying in New York, they don't necessarily know who Channel 4 is, but they all know what YouTube or what Netflix is because they're all global. So it's very easy. So the traditional players, they have to compete with these new entrants for global budgets. So that's the first trend. So they have to become global companies. They have to do the right alliances. They have to partner with the right people. Our job as a tech platform is to give them the tools to say, okay, you need to be able to be accessible by somebody who buys video in New York, in London, in Amsterdam, so that you're not competing at a disadvantage. So that's the first innovation. The players have to become global value proposition. And if they're not, they have to form bands together. That's trend number 1. Trend number 2, or innovation number 2 is it's a very crowded space in the middle between somebody who wants to buy a campaign and somebody who wants to publish a campaign. So in between, that used to be pretty simple, right? You had the buyer used an agency, the agency sent an IO to publisher, and then that was it. So now, of course, in video, programmatic is not new, nothing is new, but for the traditional media player, that transition is quite new. And because there's so many players in the middle, it creates a lot of noise in the chain, right, for an impression. And so one of the things that we're seeing and hearing and trying to do is reduce the noise, reduce the number of hops between a buyer and a user or the audience for that content. So that's again, innovation number 2 or trend number 2 is seeing these things. It's a big year for live, live sports, Olympics, Euro. Of course, there was a number of big events. And for the first time, this content appears on CTV, right? It's not just on TV. And the usage is now coming more and more off of your traditional TV set in the corner of the room. Now, it still might be on the TV set, but it's accessible in a different way, or it's accessible mobile, it's accessible on an iPad, but people are consuming it very differently. And so that creates a really big opportunity for both the advertiser and the publisher. Because all of a sudden, you have the ability to reach new advertisers. If you're a traditional TV company that was broadcasting the Euro or the Olympics on TV, maybe you had 100 people that could buy your ads on TV. But now once you make it available on streaming, guess what? There's 250, 300 advertisers they're lining up because they have the right creative. They've been buying on CTV, but they're now, wow, you mean I can buy into the Euro? I can buy into the Olympics? And that's the beauty of streaming, right? And that's the beauty of CTV now. So common currency is complicated for a number of reasons, of course. TV has had, not only has been the gold standard for, quality content, quality experience, quality users, but also quality measurement, right? TV has been sort of very transparent in its measurement. And when you think about the transition now to the streaming platform, the TV companies have to create an ecosystem where it's not just the transparency of the currency and the agreement of the buyers, but it's also something that can be combined, right? That can be combined between a traditional TV measurement that's still big, creates a lot of reach, and the impact of digital. And so TV has to come together and converge these two metrics, because the problem is TV has always been perceived as sort of this brand building initiative or brand building sort of concept, and never really sort of a top of the funnel performance tool. But it should really be that, because if you think about when people then do a search on YouTube or on Google or on any platform where they go and see the information, very often it's because they've seen an ad on video, right? So you see an ad about a car, you go and search in your search tool about that car. And so TV has a clear attribution sort of dilemma, right? It creates a lot of kind of awareness for a brand, but then the last mile very often gets credited to somebody else. Oh, right, well, you use a search tool to go and look for something that you saw on TV. So one, you have a currency issue, you need to reconcile that. So TV needs to create, generally the video players need to create a common measurement used by all, but also they need to position it in a way that changes the frame of mind, that it's not just for brand, but it can be also for awareness and performance. And that's the challenge. You talk about, what are some of the challenges? I think TV will move into the stage of performance because the agencies are looking for alternatives. The buyers are looking for alternatives, and video needs to be considered as that platform. So I want to sort of talk about that question in three separate pieces. One, cross-screen measurement is not necessarily about measurements. It is at the end of the day, but it's about the steps that you take to enable that. And to give you an example, the biggest challenge that we have, particularly in Europe, and particularly on live, is that it's completely under monetized. So in the US now, we see that about 60% of all video on CTV is coming from live. In Europe, that's only 11%. So the big difference is that in a live stream, for example, many of the European publishers will not edit or not change the ad break sequence from what airs on TV to what airs on CTV or digital platform. And they're losing opportunities to monetize because these adverts could be replaced by a number of other advertisers who either are not buying TV or want to get into the CTV space, but also it doesn't get measured, right? If you don't change the advert, it's very hard to measure the impact of your CTV viewing. So this idea that you have to be able to replace the adverts, one, because it makes business sense, but also because you can measure it. And so we at FreeWheel, we've launched a number of tools over the years, but one of them helps a publisher sort of edit the flow of content from one channel to the other based on what environment it's in. And you can optimize your campaign across TV and digital using this tool. And so it creates the optimized yield between those two campaigns. And then to come back to your question, that can all be traded programmatically, because then it all becomes an impression. It's hard because it's live, and so of course you have a millisecond to change the ad, so you have to work very hard on the creative process, because you can imagine, nobody realizes how TV is hard until it goes bad, right? And you have sort of black screen 2 minutes before the game, and then everything goes crazy. So in a CTV environment, think about how many times you've been in front of a screen that says, the content will be right back, and that's not an ad. So there's this real effort of, putting the ads where they are, so that they can be measured, so that they can be monetized, and that the ad experience is correct. So measurement is not just about, okay, let's measure that ad, but it's about creating an environment where everything's an impression and everything is broad. Then the second bit is, all right, well, how do I actually create something that's measurable? Because the problem, again, that CTV has is it's competing with, walled gardens, with a very big video platform that has its own measurement system. So first, how do you marry the two? How do you make sure that what's on the left-hand side and coming from the platforms has a standard or has something that is relatively equal on the side of CTV and more traditional publishers? Because if they're not compared the right way, it's very hard to even think about a common measurement system. Everybody has to be graded on the same homework, right? Otherwise, the dice are not relatively equal. So that's what we have to work on. So I think it's gone a long way from the early days of programmatic, and in CTV and in premium environments, the pipes or the plumbing has become better, has become more reliable. The tools that were generally not great for programmatic sort of 5-6 years ago, where you saw the same ads a few times, and all these things have been ironed out. Most people now have created the environments, and particularly us at FreeWheel, sort of to allow the best experience across all of your sales channels. So whether you are selling direct sold, whether you're selling programmatically, and when you have to marry the two, that's when you have to have the best sort of yield optimization system. And so for us, our goal number one is, when somebody wants to activate new programmatic buyers, but they also have a big direct sold business, is how you make sure that the two work hand in hand, and one is not creating an issue with the other. So that's number one. That was a problem that frankly existed in the early days of programmatic, because the two weren't well integrated. The other thing that's now working well is you have much more knowledge on the agency side on how to do it. Right? There's clear sort of a knowledge base that's been built with planners growing up in a programmatic world. So now the experiences are right. And then on the publisher side, whilst they haven't fully embraced sort of fully biddable environments, the ability to automate a transaction through programmatic guaranteed, so still benefiting from the programmatic pipes, but also having the ability to not completely throw your entire environment off. That's very important for the premium publisher. So programmatic guaranteed has been a nice sort of intermediate step before there's a full comfort around fully biddable, which exists more in your online video environments already, and sort of some of those environments. The third final thing is there had to be trust that got built between the buyers and the publishers, because often, the number of actors, the number of players that played in this field, and the growth attracted a lot of, call it, wrong behavior. Until the industry sort of solved that, it became very hard from a publisher to say, yeah, I'm going to embrace programmatic, because you didn't know really where your data was going, or if I'm sending my data to a DSP, what are they going to do with it? So once that trust sort of got established, and we're not fully there, but we've come a long way. So that's the state of programmatic in 2024 for premium video. I think we're going to see a rapid evolution over the next 2-3 years. It's gone up already sort of over the last, pre-COVID, about 600% on our network has been the take-up rate of programmatic transaction across premium video, and it's not slowing down. So we've done a lot of partnership with sort of traditional brand safety verification companies who ensure that whenever a publisher sort of puts an impression, entrusts us with the plumbing or the piping of this monetization strategy, that it's not going to end up in the wrong hands, particularly around data. And the second is for the buyers. We're lucky that we work in a very sort of trustworthy environment and that we support the sort of very premium brand. So, but it's our duty as a tech company in the middle to ensure that is, ironclad. That is that nobody is hiding something. And so, in the world of display, that was often the case. And so I think video said, well, hang on a minute, let's not do the same mistakes here, and let's think very long and hard about which actors we're bringing in, about how we're setting this up, and effectively who is going to measure this, right? Who is going to be able to say, yes, this works, this doesn't work. And I think the bodies have done an incredible job of sort of ensuring that the right tools are in place. So again, is everything perfect? No, but are we getting there? Absolutely. One, I think it's the ability we've had to always want to benefit the ecosystem. It's not been about one publisher in particular, or one brand in particular, or one agency in particular. We're trying to lift the whole ecosystem together because, frankly, the premium publisher side of the world has enough trouble competing with very big platforms that we need to help it sort of grow collectively and align collectively on tech, on data initiatives, on measurement initiatives. So that's the biggest thing that we're doing is making sure that whatever we come up from a technology perspective is sort of very democratically adopted. That's the thing. And most importantly is very interoperable, right? So when we say, okay, well, we just announced this week, we renewed our partnership with TF1 in France. And, we have a very long-standing history with a lot of these publishers that are, again, moving into this very exciting space in streaming where, quality of service, level of expertise is very important, but also interoperability. Because there's more people in this space than there were in the broadcast space. So you need to open up your tech environment to as many people as possible, but you need to do it in a way that is sort of secure. And by secure, I don't mean fraudulent or whatever, that's a given, but I mean in a way that people trust, right? So if I plug in a number of demand sources into our programmatic tool, I have to make sure that they have the right integration, that they have the right setup, that they understand how this publisher works, because it's very important. And this is what they're asking us to do, is building a system that doesn't have constraint. That's not a closed loop where it's not hard. We don't want to be yet another closed stack or another walled garden. We want to be as interoperable as possible, but again, in a way that gets fully controlled by the publisher and what they want to achieve.